Hey everybody, my name is Evan, and I like to draw. I also like Pac-Man, except my main gripe with him is that he's more Pac than he is man, so I decided to make Man Pac. And yeah, this is the worst idea I've had in a long time. But we're already like 10 seconds into the video, so it's way too late to turn back now. Anyway, we're just gonna try and blow through this as fast as possible to put this eyesore to rest. So the first thing we're gonna do is lower the sketch's opacity to 28, and then I can go in with a vector brush and get the crisper outlines. Although, this time the outlines aren't really crisp because they're all like wiggly, like the nose you see here. And also, yeah, I gave him a nose, because Pac-Man with the arms and legs has a nose, but Circle Pac-Man doesn't have a nose, but the nose looks weird, so we're doing it. Anyway, every other outline kind of is supposed to be crisp, but then it also gets wiggly, because I guess this is the texture that I gave Man Pac, and I regret all my decisions. And of course, no Man Pac is complete without a giant gaping gummy maw, so we can go and add that in too. And this time it just looks more squishy than it does wrinkly. Yup. This is what we're stuck with. And of course, to make it even more difficult to look at, I'm gonna go back through and add in more gummy squishy details. You're welcome! However, instead of trying to give his eye a realistic appeal, I kinda like the idea of giving him that classic, semi-circle triangle cartoony eye thing. I don't know, it looks better than it would with a regular eye, but it also looks unsettling, so yeah, there we go. And that's 80% of Man Pac finished, and you might think we're gonna stop here, but nope, we're making it worse. We're giving him legs and arms. And I can also be sure to add in some of the muscle definition for the legs, if you want to call it that, because I'm not quite sure how the anatomy of this thing would work. But you know, he's got legs, and I suppose somehow they connect to the body in what would be a thigh. And yeah, it looks kind of like a chicken leg, but that's what I would expect. And the same also applies to the arm, where I try and give him muscles and an elbow, but it ends up looking like more squiggling masses of things that shouldn't exist. So yeah, fun times. Now the idea of giving him like regular human fingers was also a bit too much for me, so we're just gonna go give him the classic orange gloves that look incredibly cartoony and out of place, but it's kind of funny. And then we can also give him some bright red boots, because there's no way I'm drawing Man Pac toes. That's just a really bad idea. And once the last detail is finished, that is the outline of Man Pac done, and we can move on to the background, which I'm actually doing this time, so yeah. Now I couldn't really think of much in terms of a background for Man Pac, so I kind of decided to just make him like hunting around the maze setting that he's always in, so we can just go in and add two walls on the back and make one of them three-dimensional to give it perspective and other fancy drawing terms. But yeah, it's rather fairly simple. It's kind of just two walls of ground and then little Clyde in the back cowering in fear, respectably of course. And then once that's done, we can move on to the coloring, which is also incredibly bad. Man Pac himself will be covered completely in yellow, which, I mean, looks normal, but it also kind of is pretty unsettling. Like, hey, he's so yellowy. His boots, though, will get a big red color, and then the gloves also get an orange, so there, that kind of balances it out. But then again, I really don't know why I did this. Something came over me and I was like, yeah, whatever, let's do it. But now sitting here recording the video, I'm regretting some decisions, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna apologize. Like, this was a bad idea. Anyway, to get back on topic, the inside of the boots will get a darker red to give him some shading, so yay, details, woohoo! And the gloves get that aforementioned orange that matches what regular Pac-Man has. And of course, we can't forget about the inside of his mouth, which gets a nice pink terracotta color thing all the way throughout. Yay! I love looking at this. And I know regular Pac-Man has got like this little heart-shaped tongue, but I kind of like the idea of Man Pac just being a giant gummy maw that just stomps around and doesn't have a tongue. Yeah. Anyway, the eye is going to get a solid black, because that's the color it regularly does, and it also makes him look dark and soulless on the inside like me after deciding to make this video. And then that's all the base colors done on Man Pac, so we can move on to the shading, and the lighting, and all the other details on the inside. It's kind of a confusing process. But to start, we can give him some white light highlights on the top of his body that kind of make him look shiny. And I can do this by doing a pretty much off-white, kind of yellowy white color in a gradient with a darker off-white, kind of yellowy color on the bottom. And then it's the exact opposite thing on the exact opposite side, where on the back of Man Pac we can give him some darker shading, and this will give him that like 3D circle look, kinda. And then once all of that is colored in, I can then choose a blend mode that'll help this part of the shading look less rough and tough and tumble, and it'll like blend it better and make it look more natural. And then I can add in the smoother gradients, which are difficult to see, but basically they're just giant brush strokes of light yellow towards the top and then slightly darker yellow towards the bottom. This will just give it a little bit more detail without really standing out a ton. And then of course I can also take another darker color that kind of has a lower opacity to it, and then this can be the shading all around Man Pac, which gives him even more of a 3D look. And then we can move down to the boots, which also get the same treatment as a dark gradient towards the back and then a light one towards the front. And it's also the same for the gloves, because you know if something ain't broke, you don't fix it, and they look okay. As for the inside of the mouth, there's not too many gradients. It's kind of just like darker terracotta is kind of sketched out all over the place, giving it a bunch of weird little mushy looking texture. Yeah, very descriptive. And of course the inside of the mouth also gets a smudged down darker shadows layer to it. And then once that is finally slapped in everywhere, I can then move on to his little bits of drool dipping out. And there isn't too much detail to the drool, it's pretty much just a pretty bright cyan blue, and then there's also a very light white highlight with a lowered opacity, so it kind of looks all shiny and like water-like, which is pretty gross, but you know, it's there. And that's essentially the entirety of Man Pac colored in, so I can move on to the background, starting with the floor, which gets a pretty simple gradient all the way throughout with dark on the edges and then light in the middle, but I can also give it some lighter flicks along the bottom as well. And it's also the same thing for the walls too, which are just blue, and that matches the color like in the original Pac-Man maze, so there's some sort of contingency here. Kinda. Not really. As for the background, I can put in a bunch of little colors in a gradient that goes from light to dark starting at the bottom, and then I can smudge those all down, and this will give the background still a dark look, but it won't be just solid black, so it'll be more like pretty to look at, if pretty is the word you want to use to describe this picture, which I highly doubt it is. But then I can also forget to color in Clyde, so I'll just get rid of the background and then give him a little orange gradient all the way throughout, and then I'll give his eyes some white. And after adding a shadow and smudging it down to the bottom of Man Pac, the last thing to do will be to change all the outlines from solid black to a color that more so matches what they're on top of, so the yellow around Man Pac will get a darker yellow, and this kinda gives it a less drawing-y look and kinda more natural. I don't really know how to describe it, because it kinda does something, but I don't really know what it does. I've just been doing it for ages, so... And once that is done for every color on Man Pac, that is us done here, and onto the gallery. Thank God. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, I highly suggest professional help, but regardless, this was a terrible idea. I'm sorry that you had to look at this, but thanks for sticking out till the end, guys, and I'll see you later.